Welcome back to Chess Tactic Today. In the Speed Chess Championship 2025, world champion Ding Liren faces off against the ever-fearless Hans Niemann, and this one gets wild fast. What starts as a quiet English setup explodes into tactical chaos, with both sides launching attacks and counterattacks across the board. And we're off. Ding opens with knight to f3, a very flexible move. He's not committing to a central pawn structure just yet, keeping his options wide open. Niemann mirrors the move with knight to f6. This is a solid, symmetrical response, preventing effort for the moment and developing a piece. White plays pawn to g3. This signals Ding's intention to fianchetto his light-squared bishop to g2, where it will control the long diagonal. This is a classic hypermodern approach. And Niemann immediately challenges the center with pawn to c5. He's staking his claim on the queenside and preparing to fight for the d4 square. A very principled reply. As planned, Ding puts his bishop on g2. This piece is now like a hidden sniper, eyeing the entire e8 hone diagonal. Niemann develops his knight to c6, adding another defender to the d4 square and preparing to control the center. White castles kingside, a very sensible move, getting the king to safety early and connecting the rooks. This completes the first stage of development for white. Now black plays pawn to f5. This is a strong move, creating a classic pawn duo in the center with his c-pawn and fighting for space. The battle lines are starting to be drawn. Ding plays the quiet-looking pawn to e3. He's preparing to support a d4 push, but in a more modest way. He's playing it safe for now. In response, Niemann strikes with pawn to d5. He's not waiting around. He takes the center and creates a formidable pawn front. Ding calmly plays pawn to d3, solidifying his own central control. The game is taking on a very positional, strategic character now. Black develops his bishop to d6, a natural square where it controls key central squares and prepares for future action. And now white challenges black's center with pawn to f4. This move creates immediate tension. Is black going to capture or push past? Niemann chooses to push with pawn to d4. This locks the center, and now the game is all about who can make better use of the flanks. White will likely focus on the king side and black on the queen side. It's a classic strategic showdown. Ding plays pawn to f4. This is a very important prophylactic move, preventing black's pawn from storming down the queen side with b5. Niemann answers with pawn to a6, preparing to challenge for the b5 square himself. A little duel is unfolding on the queen side. Knight to f2. This is a clever rerouting maneuver. The knight is heading to a more active square, possibly to support a kingside attack with f4. Black castles kingside, getting his king safe and bringing his rook into the game. Both sides are now fully developed and ready for the middle game fight. There it is, pawn to f4. This is the move Ding has been preparing for. He's starting his attack on the kingside, aiming to break open lines against the black king. Niemann responds immediately with bishop to g4. This move puts pressure on the f3 knight and disrupts white's attacking plans, a very active and annoying piece. Ding moves his queen to e1, a subtle but useful move. It sidesteps the pin, protects the f4 pawn, and prepares to support the kingside advance. The bishop retreats to e6. It's done its job of forcing the white queen to a passive square, and now it repositions to a solid defensive post. White pushes with pawn to f5. This is a big commitment. Ding is locking down the kingside, hoping to suffocate black and build an unstoppable attack. The bishop has to retreat again, this time to d7. Now we have a clear picture. White is all in on the kingside attack, and black needs to create counterplay fast. Queen to e2. Ding is regrouping his forces, connecting his queen to the kingside action where the real battle will be fought. And right on cue, Niemann starts his counterattack with pawn to b5. This is the classic response. It's a race now. Can white's kingside attack break through before black's queenside pressure becomes too much? Here comes the storm. Ding pushes his g-pawn to g4. He's throwing everything he has at the black king, creating a terrifying pawn avalanche. Niemann ignores the kingside threat for a moment and jumps his knight to b4. This knight is a real pest, eyeing the weak c2 square and creating problems for white. Knight to a3 defends the c2 square and prepares to challenge black's control on the queenside, a necessary defensive move. Bishop to c6. A fantastic move by Niemann, putting the bishop on an aggressive diagonal where it eyes the f3 knight and supports the queenside play. Ding keeps pushing with pawn to g5, the attack is intensifying. The white pawns are marching forward like a tidal wave, getting closer and closer to the black king. Knight to d7, the black knight retreats, but it's a clever repositioning. It's heading to a better square to help defend the kingside. And now the h-pawn joins the party with h4. This is an all-out assault. Ding is sacrificing his own king's safety to go for the throat. The tension is at its peak. And what a response, pawn to c4. This is a brilliant counterpunch from Niemann, right when the pressure was highest. He's cracking open the center and the queen side, creating chaos and forcing white to react to his threats. A fantastic way to fight back against a flank attack. Ding takes the pawn on c4. He has to, but this opens the d-file and gives black's pieces new avenues to attack. Black captures back on a fur. The queen side is now wide open, and black's rooks are going to be very happy about that. White plays pawn to c3, trying to deal with the active black knight, but this move has a serious drawback. And there it is, pawn to d3. This is a stunning move from Niemann. He plants a pawn deep into white's territory like a dagger in the heart of the position. This pawn is a massive distraction, cramping white's pieces and creating a permanent weakness. White's kingside attack is suddenly looking a lot less scary. The queen moves to d to blockade the pawn, but look how passive the white queen has become. It's babysitting a pawn instead of leading an attack. Knight to c2, Niemann's knight dives in, forking the rook and the knight on a3. White is being forced into uncomfortable exchanges. Knight takes knight. Ding is forced to capture, simplifying the position, but black's advantages remain. And pawn takes knight on c2. The pawn that started on d7 has made it all the way to c2. This passed pawn is a monster, a game winner if white isn't careful. Queen takes pawn. White eliminates the immediate threat, but the damage is done. Black's pieces are now swarming into the position. Knight to c5. The knight finds a beautiful outpost from where it controls key squares and puts more pressure on white's fragile position. Ding brings his rook to d, challenging black's control of the d-file. He's trying to consolidate, but the position is very difficult. Queen to b6, a powerful move, putting pressure on white's weak pawns and lining up against the king. King to h2, Ding moves his king off the back rank and away from any immediate threats on the g-file, a useful, cautious move. Rook to date, Niemann doubles his rooks on the d-file, seizing complete control. This is an idea you can use in your own games. Doubling rooks is almost always a good plan. Knight to phone, the knight is desperately trying to get back into the game to help defend the beleaguered king. Knight to b3, another fantastic knight jump, attacking the rook on a1 and creating more headaches for white. Bishop to e3 attacks the queen, forcing it to move. Ding is trying to buy some time here. But Niemann is ruthless. Knight takes rook on a1. He sacrifices his knight for the rook, destroying white's pawn structure and eliminating a key defender. Rook takes knight, white recaptures, but his position is looking increasingly grim. The initiative is firmly with black. And now bishop to c5. This bishop is a monster, slicing across the board and putting immense pressure on white's kingside. Bishop to cone, a sad retreat. Ding has to defend passively against black's growing threats. Rook to d7. Niemann calmly improves his position, preparing to swing the rook over to the kingside for the final assault. Bishop to f3. Ding tries to create a defensive blockade, but black's attack is coming from all sides. Rook to a8. Both of black's rooks are now on the d-file, completely dominating the center of the board. The final phase of the attack is about to begin. Knight to g3. The knight finally arrives to defend the king, but is it too little, too late? The fireworks are about to start. Wow, bishop to gone check. What a move. This wasn't the engine's top choice, but it is incredibly powerful. It forces the white king onto a more exposed square, prying open the defenses for the queen and rooks to flood in. A brilliant, stunning shot from Niemann. King to g2, the king is forced into the open. And now Niemann unleashes the final, devastating blow. And there it is, rook to d2 check. This is the game winner, a magnificent rook sacrifice that shatters white's defense completely. White must capture the rook, but after he does, black's queen will deliver the knockout punch. An absolutely brilliant and decisive combination. Bishop takes rook. Ding has no other choice, but now the floodgates are open. Queen to f2 check. The queen swoops in and the white king has nowhere safe to run. King to h3. The king is being hunted down across the board. Queen to h2 check. Another check, driving the king further into the open. King to g4, the king is on a desperate flight, but there is no escape. The net is closing. And bishop to f2, the final nail in the coffin. This quiet move threatens mate in one with qh4, and there is absolutely nothing white can do to stop it. A beautiful, crushing finish. And at this point, Ding Liren resigns. What an incredible game! Hans Niemann weathered a fierce kingside storm and then unleashed a breathtaking counterattack, capped off by a series of brilliant sacrifices. A truly spectacular victory that shows the power of courage and calculation. Thanks for watching Chess Tactic today, and we'll see you next time.